Imagine stepping into a world where everything about you is questioned. Your presence, your worth, your right to exist in spaces others take for granted. Imagine being judged not by who you are, but by the assumptions people make the moment they see you. This isn't fiction. This is the reality for countless people every single day. And for Malik Anderson, a young black teenager simply trying to take his first-class seat, that reality was about to hit harder than ever. In this gripping, true-to-life series, we reveal the painful truths behind everyday injustices, the subtle, and not so subtle, ways people in power abuse their status, the arrogance of those who think they can get away with cruelty, and the shocking consequences when the tables finally turn. Because sometimes the people you look down on are the ones holding all the power. What would you do if you were in Malik's shoes? Share your thoughts in the comments and tell us where you're watching from. If you believe in standing up against injustice, subscribe, and share this story to help spread the message. Let's make sure the world is watching. Malik Anderson clutched the handle of his small suitcase tightly as he stepped onto the plane. His heart was pounding, not from fear, but from a strange cocktail of excitement and unease. It wasn't his first time flying, but it was his first time flying alone. His father had arranged everything to make sure Malik would have a smooth experience in first class. It was supposed to be special, but from the moment he boarded, he could feel it, the weight in the air. It was subtle but unmistakable. He glanced around at the rows of plush leather seats and the elegantly dressed passengers already seated, sipping their drinks, skimming through their tablets and newspapers. No one met his gaze. His grip tightened on the suitcase handle as he pulled it carefully down the aisle, searching for his seat. As he reached up to stow his luggage in the overhead compartment, he realized it was heavier than he remembered. He struggled to lift it with both arms, his muscles trembling with effort. It wouldn't budge past his shoulders. Standing nearby was a businessman in a sharp navy suit, scrolling through his phone with one hand while his designer briefcase rested neatly in the compartment above his head. A woman sitting inches away wore dark sunglasses perched atop her head and flipped through a glossy magazine. Neither of them acknowledged Malik's struggle. A flight attendant, a middle-aged woman with a perfectly pressed uniform and a gold name tag that read Linda, glanced in his direction. Their eyes met. Malik gave her a silent plea for help. Linda adjusted her sleeve and turned away without a word. Just as Malik's arms began to tremble from the strain, a sudden jolt from behind knocked him forward. He'd barely caught himself, turning just in time to see a boy, maybe 17 or 18, shove past him and drop into the very seat Malik had been searching for. The boy was tall, with sandy blonde hair, and his sneakers, muddy and scuffed, were propped carelessly against the armrest. Malik's heart sank. I think that's my seat, Malik said, trying to keep his voice calm and polite. The boy didn't look up from his phone. Too bad. Malik hesitated, gripping his suitcase tighter. But that's seat 2A. My ticket. Not my problem. The boy finally glanced at him with a smirk. I like it here. Go find another one. Malik stood frozen for a moment. He wanted to argue, to demand his rightful seat, but his voice stuck in his throat. Instead, he turned to Linda, who was now laughing lightly with another flight attendant at the front of the cabin. Summoning his courage, he stepped forward. "Excuse me, ma'am." Linda's smile faded the moment her eyes landed on him. "Yes. That boy, he's in my seat." Malik's voice was quiet but clear. He gestured toward the sandy-haired boy, who was now lounging into as if he owned it. Linda arched a brow. "Are you sure you're in the right section, sweetheart?" Malik blinked, surprised by her question. "Yes, ma'am. My ticket says." She sighed and took the ticket from his hand, glancing at it as if it were an inconvenience. After a cursory look, she handed it back. "Why don't you find an open seat in economy? It'll be easier that way." Malik's stomach twisted. "But I paid for first class." Linda's lips curved into a smile, but there was no warmth in it. "I'm sure it was a mistake, honey. Just find another seat." The businessman in the navy suit chuckled under his breath. Malik's eyes searched the cabin, hoping someone, anyone, would say something. No one did. The passengers went on with their conversations. The sandy-haired boy continued scrolling on his phone like nothing had happened. Dragging his suitcase, Malik moved toward the back of first class. An empty seat in the last row sat unclaimed. He slid into it, his hands tightening into fists on his lap. The luxury of first class suddenly felt suffocating. As the plane prepared for departure, Malik turned his head slightly. The boy who had taken his seat, Jake, was laughing with another passenger across the aisle. Malik caught snippets of their conversation. Jake bragged about how he'd stolen a first-class seat from some kid. Malik closed his eyes. It was going to be a long flight. Throughout the next hour, things only got worse. Malik received glances that felt like daggers, whispers that weren't subtle, and pointed looks that made him feel like an intruder in a place he had every right to be. Linda reappeared later, offering drinks to the first-class passengers. She paused at Jake's row, smiling warmly as she handed him a drink. But when she reached Malik, she barely slowed. "Would you like something? Oh, never mind. I'll be back later," she said, already moving on. She never came back. Two girls across the aisle giggled, glancing at him. "Did his mom just leave him here?" One whispered. "Maybe he snuck on," the other said. Malik turned to the window, swallowing the lump in his throat. A few rows ahead, Jake called out, "Hey kid, need me to call your mom?" "Oh wait, you probably don't have her number." More laughter followed. When Malik pulled out his favorite comic book, a limited edition his dad had given him, Jake snatched it away. "Whoa, what's this?" he teased. "Give it back," Malik said, trying to keep calm. Jake flipped through it, tossing it to his friend. They passed it around like a toy, finally letting it drop to the floor. Malik retrieved it quietly, smoothing out the crumpled pages. Meal service came, and Linda brought Jake crispy chicken tenders and golden fries. When she reached Malik, she sighed dramatically. "Oh dear, looks like we're all out of children's meals. But maybe next time, remind your parents to request it earlier," she said with a smirk. As the flight dragged on, Malik endured more petty humiliations. Jake spilled juice on Malik's seat, leaving it soaked. Linda's response was a bored, "Accidents happen. You should be more careful." When he asked for headphones, Linda said, "Those are for priority guests." By the time Jake dropped his pretzels on the floor and loudly accused Malik of stealing them, Malik was emotionally drained. But Linda was swift, siding with Jake and threatening to have Malik removed from the flight. What no one on the plane knew was that Malik's father, Victor Anderson, wasn't just a successful businessman. He owned the airline. A junior flight attendant named Emily realized who Malik was. She quietly alerted Captain Morris in the cockpit. When Captain Morris learned Malik's identity, his demeanor shifted. He stormed out of the cockpit and addressed Linda in front of everyone. "You've made a grave mistake," he said. Linda tried to laugh it off, but Captain Morris's expression was stone. "This young man is Malik Anderson, the son of Victor Anderson, chairman of this airline." The entire first-class cabin froze. Jason's smirk vanished. The businessman sat straighter. The girls stopped whispering. Linda's face drained of color. "I've reviewed the reports," Captain Morris continued. "You allowed this boy to be harassed, denied him basic accommodations, and humiliated him." Linda stammered, "I didn't." "Save it," Morris snapped. "Corporate is on the line." Emily connected the call. The VP of Operations, Mark Peterson, was brief and cold. Effective immediately, Linda Monroe is relieved of her duties. Linda's hands trembled as she removed her badge. No one came to her defense. Jason looked away, silent for once. Captain Morris made sure Malik was treated with the respect he deserved for the remainder of the flight. A senior airline representative boarded at the layover to personally escort Malik and apologize. As the plane landed, Linda was the first to be escorted off. No one said goodbye. Jason stared at Malik as he gathered his things. "I didn't mean," Jason started. Malik looked him in the eye. "You didn't think," he said simply. "Would it have made a difference if you knew who I was?" Jason had no answer. Malik stepped off the plane, his back straight. For the first time since boarding, he felt light. The end. If you were moved by Malik's story and believe in justice, like, share, and subscribe. What was the most shocking moment for you? Did you expect Linda to face consequences? Were you surprised by Jason's reaction? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Also, tell us where you're watching from. We love seeing how far our stories reach.